The morning of Monday, September 15, 2025 began with a chilling discovery on the campus of Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi. A sense of normalcy was shattered when police were notified about a body found near the university's pickleball courts. The individual was soon identified as Demartravion Trey Reed, a 21-year-old black student and first-year student, on campus for about a month. This tragic event immediately cast a dark shadow over the campus, sending ripples of shock and concern throughout the student body and the wider community. Friends and family described him as a young man full of promise and warmth. The news that he was found hanging from a tree struck a particularly raw nerve, because of the location and the historical context of such an act in the American South. Initial reports spread quickly, amplified by social media, sparking outrage and questions. Law enforcement cordoned off the location as they worked. The university community was left to mourn, with the identity of Trey Reed confirmed, deepening the tragedy for his family and friends, drawing attention from across the state and the nation. In the immediate aftermath of the discovery, officials began to release their initial findings. The Bolivar County coroner, Randolph Rudy Seals Jr., issued a statement following a preliminary examination of Trey Reed's body. According to the coroner, there were no broken bones or any other injuries consistent with a physical assault. However, the family's experience with law enforcement only added to their confusion and distress. According to Trey's grandfather, J.B. Reed, the family was initially misinformed about the circumstances of his death. He said the sheriff's department told them Trey was found unconscious in his bed, and that his death had been ruled a suicide. This stark contradiction between what the family was told privately and the public reality created a deep sense of mistrust, and became a critical reason for their calls for an independent investigation. They felt they were not being given a straight or complete story. The gap between the official narrative and the family's understanding widened with each passing hour. The authorities' conclusion felt premature to a family, grappling with immense grief and inconsistent information from those tasked with finding the truth. Grief-stricken and unconvinced by the official reports, the family of Trey Reed began to publicly voice their doubts.
Something is just not right.
I don't believe Trey would do this to his family and hang himself. Their pain grew from being dismissed and unheard, so the Reed family retained Ben Crump. Crump said he'd lead a team including several civil rights organizations to run a transparent, independent investigation.
They were still waiting for answers.
The family demanded an independent autopsy to get an unbiased read of the physical evidence, separate from the local medical examiner's conclusions. They felt abandoned by the university where Trey was a student, saying they received no direct communication from Delta State leadership.
Trey Reed was a young man full of promise and warmth,
Deeply loved and respected by all who knew him. His family and the campus community deserve a full, independent investigation. We cannot accept vague conclusions when so many questions remain. The call for an independent process showed their loss of faith and determination to find justice. The death of Trey Reed quickly drew the attention of community leaders and civil rights groups. U.S. Representative Benny Thompson, a Democrat whose district includes the area, called for a federal investigation by the Department of Justice and the FBI. He powerfully stated, "We cannot ignore Mississippi's painful history of lynching and racial violence against African Americans." The Mississippi Legislative Black Caucus also issued a statement expressing that they were deeply concerned about the tragic loss. The caucus affirmed that its members were actively asking questions of local officials and would remain engaged as the investigation unfolded, promising to monitor the situation closely. In a state like Mississippi, with its well-documented history of racial injustice and violence, the death of a young black man under such circumstances inevitably raises specters of the past. Civil rights leaders understand that ensuring a transparent and just process is not only about finding the truth for Trey Reed's family, but also about affirming that the old patterns of injustice will not be repeated or tolerated. Many people are watching closely, waiting for the results of the independent autopsy and ongoing investigations. The family's search for truth, amplified by voices of civil rights leaders and elected officials, has turned a personal tragedy into a public test of the justice system. The call for clarity is about ensuring that every life is valued, and every death is investigated with the dignity and rigor it deserves, especially when the echoes of a painful history are impossible to ignore.